Okay, welcome back to 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And we're going to kick off. This is October 1st. First day of Halloween month, for lack of better words. And we're back into the mad scientist motif. But with this film I'm going to talk about, you're either going to need a lot of this or a lot of that. Or maybe both. Who the fuck knows? But anyway, taking you back to late night TV, film shot in 1963 that was released, actually it was shot in 58 and wasn't released until 63 because they ran out of money. And the film was released to late night TV where I first saw it. It was called The Atomic Brain. But the real good release here would be on Something Weird triple feature where it's Monstrosity. Now, here's the plot. There is a mad doctor named Dr. Frank, how fucking original, who was working for a rich old lady who was on the way out called Mrs. March. Now, Mrs. March wants to have her brain transplanted into the body of a nubile young female. So she hires 3 young domestics from different countries, and she makes sure that her henchman Victor finds out that they have no living relatives to go to. So anyway, before all the fun starts, Dr. Frank and his first failed experiment, which was basically transplanting the brain of a dog into somebody, and that's the Monstrosity, they go to a cemetery to get a freshly interred corpse of a young woman. And they kill the cemetery guard off camera, bring the body back and put it into Dr. Frank's big fucking reactor, which is in the basement of this mansion. How the hell he snuck a nuclear reactor in the basement of a mansion is beyond me, but hey, what the hell. But anyway, he brings this chick back to life, but she's dead, so she basically just wanders around aimlessly through the whole movie until something happens. But anyway, the 3 domestics arrive, and let me see, I wrote this shit down. The hot-looking one is B, sort of like a Marilyn Monroe clone, and the middle one is Nina, who is pretty hot herself, but it seems like the homelier one of the bunch is one named Anita, has a birthmark on her back, and is quickly dismissed as a candidate for domestic work and is given a room way down in the basement. Well, while Anita's setting up her little bedroom, she's interrupted by a knock on the door and a scream, and that's all you see of Anita for a bit. The other 2 women, B and, what the hell was her name? Nina, are told that she left. Well, the other 2 want to leave too, but they're not allowed to leave. Well, Mrs. March is already settled on B because B has the hotter body. So, anyway, what happened with Anita was that Dr. Frank transplanted the brain of his fucking cat into her head. So now she meows, she drinks milk out of a saucer and craps in a litter box. And she also escapes. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Mrs. March is already settled on B, but B goes out on the grounds to screw around with Victor because she's looking for her, whatever. And she spots Anita on top of some kind of, I think it was a pavilion or something like that. She tries to get Nina down, but Nina swipes her eye out. Now she's disfigured and back in Dr. Frank's laboratory where basically they hooked up her severed eye to some electric thing. So now Nina's the likely candidate, and she sees Anita playing cat on top of the roof, but Anita falls off the fucking roof. In the meantime, the dog boy is tracking the zombie who wandered outside and basically kills her off camera too and spends the rest of the film chained up outside, like the dog that he is. So now, it's all coming down to this whole thing, boys and girls, where Mrs. March is going to get Nina's brain. And they're all prepped in the operating room and pretty much all ready to go when she had already killed Victor off camera, because the whole thing was Victor segued this whole thing into leaving Mrs. March's fortune to Nina because she's going to be in Nina's body. So what does Dr. Frank do during the surgery? He transplants Mrs. March's brain into the fucking body of a cat. So, of course, Mrs. March is a vindictive pussy, you know. she should be. So she finds where the red button is on the nuclear reactor and hits it with her paw. Nina books out of the house while the whole thing goes up in one huge nuclear blast. And of course, the cat is now following Nina because Nina has all her wealth. The end. Like I said, they had said this film had been stopped because they ran out of money and they edited it together as best they could. The producer, Jack, what the hell was his name? Pollenfex, fired the director and finished the film himself. If you remember, Jack also directed The Indestructible Man. So here's a film that is so fucking off the wall, so fucking crazy, but you can't seem to take your eyes off it. And Monstrosity, the poster, had this really weird, like, S&M B&D scenario with these girls with their backs to us naked with chains around them and disclaimers and stuff. It sort of played out like a Joseph Green thing, like The Brain That Wouldn't Die with a little sex thrown into it, but the only sex that's thrown into it is a 19-year-old girl that's in the beginning with a band across her boobs and her nether regions. So, and also when the narration started, I was thinking, oh, this is another fucking creeping terror deal where they lost the soundtrack, but they didn't. The only name involved in this film that you're going to recognize is Bradford Dillman, who did the narration. And that's it. So, is it worth checking out? Shit, yeah. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're baked, drunk, stoned, or whatever. So, that's our first film for the Halloween month. And we'll be back later with some more. I'd like to say thanks to a few people that had stopped by the house after attending the Cinema Wasteland convention about 20 minutes away here. Don't know how that convention was because I haven't really heard anything, but I'm sure I'll hear something later today because today's October 1st. And of course, my sidekick and physical therapist, Dr. Gonzo, will be stopping by later on to let me know what happened. So until next show, stay safe. Happy Halloween. It's going to be a great fucking month, and we'll catch you on the flip side.